the pinnacle, the main reason why this is a great move for us is because now we get an Alliance War defense set up. This is a game changer for us all. Thank you, Kabam. It's appreciated. So go tell your friends. I've been playing around. I watched a bunch of videos over the last 24 hours, part of not sleeping very much last night. Unlike our boy Georgie here, I was studying too. I just did it late at night, well after bedtime. Here's kind of where I settled so far. This was before before I watched Campo's video today. But let's get into masteries. All right, let's talk about this thing. Now, when I heard that these were coming to the game, I could tell you exactly what I said, which was, I'll believe it when I see it. Because I heard about this, 3 years ago? I think we got the dev diary, maybe longer. Dev diary, mastery updates are coming. We know that you want something different. By the way, in that dev diary, they also talked about wish crystals, which never showed up. Although we did get nexuses, fair enough. And what was the other big one? Oh yes, Alliance War was going to be looked at as a game mode and revamped. And where has that gone? Introduction of tactics, not exactly revamping the game mode, huh? Yeah. So when I heard that mastery updates were coming, I said, sure, yep, sure thing. But lo and behold, and good on Kabam, by the way, for giving us like a week's heads up, because otherwise I wouldn't have believed it either. It's here. We have mastery loadouts, which are basically 3 preset mastery setups that you can have. Kudos to them also, beyond getting these set up with the 3 setups, because they allowed us to have a week free. And that's great because, like, for instance, last night I spent probably 30 minutes testing the interaction of the suicide masteries, recoils, with different health pools and things like that. Because for me, I have some thoughts on that. We'll get there when we talk about that setup. So, in my general questing setup, here is where I wound up settling. Tossed everything into the crit and crit damage. Diminishing returns aside, if you're going to be fighting with 6 stars, you probably want to give them the most crit rating you can. The crit damage was neither here nor there, but there wasn't really a good spot to throw that point, at least one that I didn't see as valuable. But it's pretty straightforward, man. Get the crit damage, get your despair ranked up. You generally, it's pretty rare when you don't want to be running max despair, in my opinion. Threw in the max deep wounds, reviewed the roster. I got enough bleed champs, took Venom up to rank 2. I'm rocking Nick Fury, rocking Shield, rocking Black Cat. I run them regularly enough that max deep wounds made sense. And then threw the 1 point in Assassin. I don't think it's worth going more than that in Assassin. I think I might have unlocked it once. I can't tell. But yeah, it's pretty offensive heavy. Here in defense, it's pretty straightforward. You get your typical recovery mastery, make sure that your regen goes as much as possible. Same with willpower. I notoriously, or constantly, however you want to phrase it, run max willpower. I know some people would say get away with 1 in there, but as often as champs are placing debuffs on us today, I find that max willpower is the spot to be. For my questing setup, there was no need to go into any of the inequity stuff like that. But you almost always want to max out block proficiency. As much as you're going to parry or take block damage, you want to mitigate as much of that as possible. These energy and physical resistance masteries don't do much. At 160 resistance, physical resistance, right? 160 energy resistance. Think of someone like Guardian. Okay, Guardian's got like 8,000 energy resistance. So 160 energy resistance is effectively going to be nothing. And by the way, with 8,000 energy resistance, you can still, for instance, do cold snap damage, shock damage. You can use Shuri, Kate, etc. against someone like Guardian because he still takes damage due to the diminishing returns. Now, I think anyone hanging out here, and correct me if I'm wrong, have a handle or at least some knowledge of the diminishing returns and how they work in this game. If we need to go into that, we absolutely can. But basically, you'll never get to 100 or 0 in this game. Ghost has guaranteed crits. If you go against 90% crit resistance, there will be many hits where she will not crit. They call it guaranteed, but it's not really 100. Your crit rating, your crit damage, your resistances, they all work the same too. You're never going to be 100% resistant, generally speaking, unless it says that in the champ abilities. You can't do it through your masteries. And even then, there's a reason that, for instance, someone like Onslaught, they made him 150% resistant, right? There's a reason Longshot has 200% ability accuracy, right? So those types of things play into how we would set up our masteries and what we do with those things. In my questing setup, my proficiencies are straightforward. Really, it's just... Oh wait, one other thing. Defense. I'm a max stand your ground guy. If I could get away with maybe one less point in there, I would, but you get a lot of benefit from that last point. You know, you get 17%, so a little less than 1 out of 5 with your first point. You double that with your next 3 points. And then you add another 50%, or you basically get a triplicate, going from 0.4 to 5. Getting another 17% from 1 point, that's a great return. A great return. I like max stand your ground in the land of, America Chavez, Mysterio, these champs that have quick heavies, having the ability to block break or to resist block break. Beautiful thing. Highly recommend. Also great on defense. Proficiencies, really it's just, max limber. I personally do that. You always want to have your Stupefy max. Stupefy is a must. You get your parry, you get your dex. The only reason I have 2 points in parry is because I find that point more valuable than putting 1 into petrify. There is some argument to put points in petrify. That was an interesting part in Campo's video where he maxes petrify out, and he made the point that ability power rate and combat power rate are basically reduced, in this case up to 30%, which means you can get to your specials sooner, they'll throw less specials in a given match, etc. There is some argument for that, but I do think that you would probably want to max that, and I'm not going to put points in that. That's like an Alliance War attack mastery that you would switch into for certain fights. And contrary to my defensive setup, which you'll see when we get there, my Mystic Dispersion is only at 4 of 5 points. I find 5 points in MD to be tough on attack. I do run it in Battlegrounds, but how many times in Battlegrounds do we get to that, oh dang, I wound up at my special 3, right? Mystic Dispersion for defense is crucial if you're going to be placing Mystics or for something like Battlegrounds. And really, similar to your Stand Your Ground, you get 2% for 1. You get up to 8% through 4 points. And then you get a full 4% for 1 more point. It is a pain to face on D. If you're going to be using Mystics with regularity on defense in Battlegrounds, you should max MD. Highly recommend it. But for my attack, and this is not a Battleground setup, this is just my typical questing setup. For my typical questing setup, I like 4. It's a nice spot of being very powerful, still being a little bit risky because you get 8%, but not getting that full extra 4%. Oh, Manuel, welcome, brother. I literally just used max petrify and read pre-fight attack to have a super safe war. There you have it. That's from the man himself. He often tells me I should switch my masteries for certain fights, and I have to be honest, I commonly don't necessarily heed that advice, but I do appreciate that advice, because you're right. But that is, if you want to have a super safe war, right, you throw a Reed Petrify on, reduce their power gain by 30%, and if you can stun, you're going to be in a sweet spot, right? That's going to be very nice for throwing specials. And frankly, maybe I should look at it for Battlegrounds, right? I mean, typically in Battlegrounds, I run Inequity, but maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should swap out if it's not going to be a debuff heavy meta. My recoil setup, I mean, this is a basic, really this is an arena focused recoil setup, because if I'm going to run recoils for questing or things like that, I'll also do a hybrid where you have max, or not max MD, but you have some MD running and some other stuff. But this is just straight, I'm gonna go smoke through things and try to blitz through everything. Including the courage, right? For when my health gets low, if I'm gonna do that through some questing. Max recoil, or sorry, max glass cannon. The reason I do max glass cannon is because the way willpower works, you heal a percentage of your overall health. And if you have too much overall health, you will lose just a little bit more health than you'll gain. But if you put 3 points into glass cannon, you'll basically break even. Now, for someone like me, who winds up getting down to, 10 health, it will keep me alive and keep me from dying at 1%. And so I like keeping it there just so I can fight fights at super low health and not die if I'm running the poison. Right. Suicides are straightforward though. You guys know what you're doing. This defense is very light. It really was just to get to willpower and to get a point and to coagulate. I did unlock coagulate with some of the cores that I've been gathering from those weekly crystals, which if you're not gathering, you should. But that's a good one for, again, if you're going to build a recoil setup where you're going to go quest, okay? You want to put yourself in position to maintain some of your health. Yeah, to Manuel's point, this setup is hardcore attack. Like, I'm just trying to blister people, and really, it's an arena grinding setup. I would not necessarily quest with this setup, though I did do some AQ with it. And proficiencies, super basic. You get your parry, get your dex, 1 point limber so we can get to stupefy. You always max stupefy. Okay, you always want to do it. It's gonna buy you time to be able to counterattack when you parry, regardless of limber. So you gotta keep the points in stupefy. If you don't put points in there, test it out. You'll feel it. I guarantee it. Now, to the big one. And really, this is like having your attack setups nice, having the recoil setups nice, but the pinnacle, the main reason why this is a great move for us is because now we get an Alliance War defense set up. And that is something we've been asking for forever. So here's what I've got on defense, okay? Just enough points really to get myself over to the despair tree and all that stuff, right? It's 19. I got 4 over here. These crit and crit damage are very important on attack, but on defense, not nearly as much, right? If someone's getting hit in war or they're getting hit on defense, it's already going to be bad. Almost in all of those matchups, our defenders have attack modifiers. So, crits and whatnot are going to happen, but much less important than on attack. Now, what I did do, though, was prioritize putting 3 of 3 in courage, because again, as my defenders get their health taken down, well, they're going to hit 20% harder when they get past 50%. And, how many times do you get into war and the first half of a fight goes great and the second half of a fight sucks? That's how my wars go. I don't know about yours. Outside of that, we get that set up, again, setting toward our defenders. You put a point in despair, really just to get to the assassin, the deep wounds, and of course, unfazed. If at all possible, you really want to run unfazed. I generally recommend it in your Battlegrounds deck also. It's going to help against your Elsa, your Starkey, your, who's the other one? Mr. Negative. Hey, what up, Jay Will? Good to see you, brother. I appreciate it. Appreciate the lurk. If you want to get on the friendly list, by the way, the friendly list is open. I'm here yammering about masteries and whatnot. Unfazed. Unfazed is good. The one downside with unfazed, and it's the only one I know of, but let me know if that's wrong, is it can cause crit fail against Domino that wouldn't otherwise happen. So for instance, Shuri, if you're hitting Domino while she's lucky, she can crit fail you because she's technically failing the unfazed, even though Shuri's abilities can't be reduced. Domino's screwy, Domino's weird. No one really knows how she works. In fact, Kabam even made that a part of their joke in their April Fool's thing, you know. They tuned Domino's abilities to 15%, right? Because we all know it's not 15%. Now, the heart of the defense. Here's what I put in for my current defensive setup. And that's important to note because specifically, I do not have any Mystic Defenders. This would be very different if I was running Mystic Defenders, but in Alliance War, I am not running any. So you can see the first thing that's a little abnormal here is I maxed out Greater Vitality. That's 8% extra base health, right? We want our champs to be chunkier, but in Alliance War, also as a reminder, our champs get multipliers, right? So when it's 200, 300, 400% health, this 8% is going to turn into a much higher number than just here's a 8 overall percent, right? It's going to multiply out and your champ's going to wind up having, you know, 30, 40, 50K more health in some instances, depending on where you have them placed and the size of your defender. Also kept the block proficiency up. Got to do max stand your ground, right? Again, how many times you get parried on the heavy, especially right now with the AI being so hyper responsive. You get a parry in, you try to heavy, you're a little bit slow on the draw, and boom, you're parried and you're getting comboed into oblivion. Definitely kept the max recovery on. I did see some argument that that is not something that you want to put on there because it's defense, but I personally would leave that in. Maybe there is some value in moving that point to inequity or to coagulate, but to be TBD. And then I still run max willpower. Again, I want my defenders healing as much as possible. I mean, how many times do you get into like a, you know, a sassy or someone at the end of their life and you're putting a debuff on them and it's just tacking on top of the regen they're already getting, right? And that's a good example too of someone, you know, I'm running Weapon X on D. I want to boost his regen as much as possible. So, and then again, I unlocked Coagulate. So this will at least help my defensive champs if someone's applying bleeds. Beyond that, you know, doesn't do much, but that's fine. And then of course inequity, right? Anytime debuffs are getting placed, we want our champs reducing the attack of the opponents. And so this is, it's very defense heavy. And the proficiencies are low because again, I'm not running mystics. Simple parry, you always keep your stupefy maxed, always max stupefy. And then max limber, right? I like running that on attack too, because there are so many, you know, again, hyper reactive AI, you're getting parried. Well, it's nice to have a short stun. You're on, what is that node right now? The one that's countdowns 20 seconds and then stuns you. You know, if you're running limber, you can time that with your opponent's special and they can be throwing their special. You can be distanced and get stunned and then you can recover before they can actually hit you. If you're not running max limber, you're going to be stunned too long and then you're going to get obliterated and die. So I always recommend running max limber. This is my current Alliance War defense setup. The important thing to note is really MD. If you are running Mystics in Alliance War, please max out your MD. Not if you're facing us, by the way. This is only for my Alliance mates. anyone who's not facing us, please don't put MD on your Mystics. But if you're in my alliance, max MD makes fights so brutal. How many times you gotta fight a Chavez and you can't even dex the special one, because if you do, and she threw a heavy, she's gonna get right back to a full bar of power, and she's gonna go ahead and be spamming special ones and just cause the fight to be painful. Another good example, Sassy, right? He already has less power. He loses less power when he throws his specials. You can combine that with some nodes and make life very difficult for the defender. You put max MD in and it's almost an intolerable fight. So keep it going. Keep it going. Now, one thing that will be markedly absent from this conversation beyond the Mystic stuff is I haven't unlocked any of these. Collar Tech, which I know is valuable. Serum Science, probably not worth it. I mean, 1,000 energy resistance is nice, but what's that really going to get you? Again, Guardian, 8,000 energy resistance. You can still take energy damage. It's not much. Let's see. Crit resistance, meh. Bleed debuff expiration faster. You got other masteries that can apply those to all champs. Right? You can go out here to Suture. Right, that's going to reduce that. Sure, you could do it more with mutants, but mutants also tend to have bleed resistant champs. So there's kind of some conflict in how that mastery works. Collar Tech I know is valuable because anytime you can reduce your combat power rate of your opponent is a good place to be. But I haven't messed with it yet. I probably will unlock this one day when I'm not busy burning loyalty to bullseyes on 48, right? And I can actually afford to buy some mastery cores. Then maybe I'll do that. That's where I'm at. This is where I'm at. It's not bad. Not a bad little setup. I love it though. Once it's all said and done, and on the 10th, they release to us the ability to check one for Alliance War defense. This is a game changer. A game changer for us all. Thank you, Kabam. It's appreciated. It would have been nice had we been a little bit more expeditious in getting this released. Let's say within, I don't know, 1 calendar year of the dev diary. But I'll take 3. That's fair enough. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.